Phillies on top.
But this club just does not die.
He's under it. He's got it. And the game is over. Hoskins swung on, crushed, and the Phillies are going to lead it 4-0. Just a towering fly ball to straightaway left. Swagger was ready. Bryce Harper has put the Phillies on top.
And welcome back, everybody, to the AET Sports Network. On Tuesdays, as always, it is all about the Phillies for another great episode of Phrankly Phils. I'm your host, Adam Mack. I am joined with a very, very special guest. I was thinking all day how I was going to introduce, a Phillies icon, but then I kind of realized there's only one person that can actually introduce a Philadelphia Phillies. So I'm going to let the legend do it himself.
Now batting for the Phillies, number 12, second baseman, Mickey Morandini.
Awesome. We have Mickey Morandini, obviously a Phillies icon, member of the 1993 NL Championship team. Mickey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. I'm super excited to be able to talk to you, obviously, about, that your stint with the Phillies, and obviously kind of talk about the 2022 and 2023 Phillies, but just going to get right into it. Speaking of Dan Baker, last year was celebrating 50 years of Dan Baker. He's still going strong for us. He did say in an interview that your name was one of his favorite to ever say, to introduce. But what does he kind of meant, not just to the Phillies, but just kind of like the game of baseball?
Yeah, just, 50 years, man. That's a long, long time to do anything. Up until a few years ago, he hadn't missed a game, which was incredible. He's had some health issues with his jaw in the last few years, but just an icon. It's really impressive how he says everybody's names. He knows exactly what syllables to enunciate, and I love the way he says JT Realmuto now. I think that's pretty awesome. So I've had an opportunity to do a lot of things with Dan off the field. We do a little thing called the Bull Session. It's some Chickies and Pete's around Philadelphia, and just a super down-to-earth guy. He loves what he does, and he wants to continue doing it for a number of more years. So, knock on wood that he can stay healthy and be able to do what he loves.
Yeah, I think just for anyone that's grown up going to Phillies games, that's the one thing. Players come and go, but that's always the one consistent thing, and it's definitely something I always can remember. But what are some early memories of your playing years that you remember of him and what he's done for you? You're on the on deck circle, and you're waiting to hear your name played, and he says your name with those enunciations, and the crowd goes wild. And back in the day when I played, my walk-up song was "This Is How We Do It" by Montel Jordan. So it was always fun. I mean, he makes it fun. He makes it exciting. Gets the crowd fired up by the way he says your name. And like I said, off the field, he's a super, super nice guy, cares about people. And it's a pleasure for me to be able to know him and call him my friend. So is there any backstory to your walk-up song?
No, not really. I just liked it. I was an R&B guy, kind of a pop guy. And I always loved that song. And, it kind of has a theme, this is how we do it. We play the game, the right way. We play the game hard and have fun doing it. And I just kind of thought that fit my mold, walking up to the plate.
Another longtime member of the Phillies kind of broadcasting team, and unfortunately left us way too early, was Harry Callis. What are some of those fond memories you had of him back in your playing days? For him calling games?
Yeah, it was similar to Dan. I mean, anytime I go out in Philadelphia or around the area, everybody comes up to me and says, "Man, I love the way Harry and Dan said your name." And they kind of put me on the map, to be honest with you, here in Philadelphia. And Harry was awesome. Another great guy. Loved what he did. I have great memories of him coming into the clubhouse and chatting with the guys, being on the flights, when we travel, and him being in the back of the plane, having a few cocktails, sitting with Larry Anderson and Tommy Green, and just love talking baseball. I remember one story where we were delayed. We had a thunderstorms coming through Philly. We were taking off on a road trip to Colorado, and Harry's downing some beers, and we're delayed for like 2 hours. And Harry, falls asleep, and a couple hours later he wakes up and he goes, "Man, that was a smooth ride," and we hadn't even taken off yet. So he was pretty awesome. He was fun to be around.
That's awesome. So kind of let's get a little bit into your playing career. So I think one of your most memorable moments, something that many teams I don't think can do that very often, but it's turning a triple play. And you had an unassisted triple play, and just kind of walk me through is that something that you ever thought you could pull off?
Honestly, I never thought about it, to be honest with you. We're playing in Pittsburgh I think it was an afternoon. It may have been a night game, but we were out of the race. We weren't very good. It was 1992, but we were playing the Pirates team that was very good. They were playoff bound. And, they get guys at first and second, no outs. Now, normally you don't run guys in that situation because you want to stay out of a possible line drive double play situation. But Jim Leland sent the guys with no outs. Jeff King hits a line drive up the middle. I take a step, dive, catch it. I'm probably really 4 steps from second base. I run over to second, and Barry Bonds is standing right there. He made it easy for me. I just tagged him as I transferred second. The whole play probably lasted maybe 4 or 5 seconds at most. And at the time, didn't really know the importance of it. Hey, we were in a tie ball game. We got out of the inning. Let's go score some runs. And then after the game, the press came up to me and said I was the first second baseman to do it in the regular season. I was the 9th overall to do it. And there's only been 15 ever, which is really unique. So something I'm pretty proud of. Just, being in the right place at the right time, really.
Was it when you saw Eric Bruntlitz a few years back when he did it? Did it bring back some memories for you and be like, I did the exact same thing that guy did?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you see it, it's going to bring back memories. Even, when September rolls around, it always brings back memories for me because I did it on September 20th in 92. But yeah, the only thing different was Eric made an error that inning to set up the unassisted triple play. I didn't have to do that, but yeah, it'll always bring back memories, especially, it's special to me because I was the first second baseman ever to do it in the regular season. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a big, not many people can say it. I remember my highlight in Little League was I was pitching and I wasn't doing so hot. I loaded the bases on 3 straight walks, but we got out of the inning because we turned a triple play.
Oh, is that right?
And it helped. My ERA was 0 for the rest of the season. That was the last time I ever pitched, but I had a 0.00 ERA because
doesn't matter how you get it done, just get it done.
Absolutely not. All right, let's kind of get a little bit more into it. Speaking of the 92, next year was kind of that magical year. A lot of people that grew up throughout the 90s and 80s, they always will say that 93 team was one of their favorites. Going from 92, you guys only won, I think, about 70 games, but the next year is a complete big turnaround. What was, the change from 92 to 93? Was it a culture? Was it the players? What was kind of that change?
It was a combination of things. Lee Thomas in the offseason did an outstanding job. Instead of going out and getting a superstar just to come in and bring in fans, he went out and signed some really, really good, solid veteran players. Danny Jackson, Inky, Milt Thompson, Eisenreich, Danny Jackson, those types of players. And, we had an incident in spring training where we got into this big brawl with the Cardinals. They hit a couple of our batters. Tommy Green hit their batter, and then they hit another one of ours, and benches cleared. And we really bonded after that. We really came together as a team, and that was towards the end of spring training. And then we got off to a hot start. We had great leadership in Darren Dalton. He was one of the best, if not the best, clubhouse presence I've ever been around. And we got off to a hot start. All of a sudden, we got 40,000 screaming Philly fans coming out to Vet Stadium. and we stayed on a roll. We stayed healthy for the most part. We had guys have career years, and it was one of those years where everything went right.
Yeah, it's awesome. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the womb yet for that '93 team. So I wish I was able to experience it, everything. But just kind of going through some of the guys on that team. Just looking at the line: Darren Dalton, John Kruk, Milt Thomas, Lenny Dykstra, like all those kind of guys. One thing I'm always impressed with the Phillies is the strong alumni base that they have. What have those guys meant to you, not just as teammates, but now as, you guys are all into retirement?
Yeah, well, we've lost a couple of really good teammates way too early, and Darren Dalton, David West, Kim Batiste. But we have a group chat that we still talk baseball. We do fantasy camp. There's about 8 to 10 of us who go down to fantasy camp where we see each other. Milt Thompson, Tommy Green, Larry Boa, Crucky, all still are in the area here. Larry Anderson. So we see those guys quite often. Stocks now working on radio, so I get to see him a lot. So those guys meant a lot to me. The one thing I miss the most, obviously, is competing on the field, but just being in the clubhouse with those guys and hanging out and talking baseball and having fun. I really miss that. That was a special group of guys we had that year.
I know you mentioned, you guys really bonded after that brawl against the Cardinals in spring training. I absolutely love that. I think that's a great way to, bring a team together.
Yeah.
Was there a moment throughout that season, though, that you, as a team, you guys realized you definitely can make a run for the National League pennant and possibly even a World Series?
Yeah, when you see certain things happen during a game, you're like, man, this is our year. Like Milt Thompson makes a game-saving grand slam catch in San Diego. I think it was in May. The next day, I make a diving play up the middle with runners at first and second on, nobody out, with Mitch on the mound. We get out of that. Mariano Duncan hits a grand slam off of Lee Smith. I think it was maybe in June or late May. When you start winning ball games like that, you know that there's something special going on. And we had a lot of comeback wins. I remember one against the Giants at home. They had a lefty on the mound. They're winning 7-0. West Chamberlain hits an absolute bullet up the middle. The pitcher catches a line drive. He slammed the ball down and stared in our dugout. We come back and win 8-7. I mean, those types of things are things that happen with really good teams, obviously, but special teams. And we were a special team that year.
Yeah, just looking at some of the guys, like obviously watched as many Philly games as I can. But one thing I always love, especially now with John Kruk calling a lot of the home games, is just like all the stories he has. But I've started to notice he's not really saying many funny stories about himself. So, do you have any fun John Kruk stories?
He was very laid back before the game, but he was very intense during the game. A great athlete, really. He could obviously hit the baseball. He was a tremendous hitter. But he would be.
Oh no, we lost Mickey.
1 o'clock. Order a couple of pizzas. He'd down about 10 to 12 pieces of pizza in the afternoon, and he'd go out and get 3 hits. There was one spring training I remember. I don't remember the year. I think it was after '93. He goes, I'm going to come to spring training in shape. He goes, I'm going to lose a bunch of weight. I'm going to come in shape. And he did. He looked great. And he went out in the first 20 at bats in spring training. It was like 1 for 20. And he goes, the heck with this. He goes, I'm going to start eating and putting weight back on. And he did. And he started raking again. So, but just a fun guy to be around. But like I said, he could get pretty intense during the game and took the game very seriously once he got between the white lines.
How important is it? Like we've obviously seen many teams that have like a bunch of superstars on it. But sometimes the culture is not always right. How important, was having the right culture in '93 rather than having, more superstars?
Yeah, I mean, winning breeds that. When you win, you're going to have a good clubhouse for the most part. You don't ever hear a team that's, 50 games under 500 go, man, but we got great chemistry in this clubhouse. So, but like I said before, we had a great clubhouse leader in Darren Dalton. He nipped any issues in the bud. If you did something if you did something on the field that wasn't team oriented, he would call you back into the weight room, sit you down, have a chat with you. And that was it. That's how much respect we had for Darren. And very few times did something have to go into the manager's office, because Darren would take care of it. And that's why I really believe that's why we had such a great ball club and such a great clubhouse that year.
That's awesome. So kind of just keep going throughout your career, or even let's say in '93, you know, it's every little league kid's dream to play in the World Series. We all dream of it. But as a player, unfortunately, didn't come up, wasn't the result you wanted. But what's it like, you know, playing in the World Series? I know a bunch of people always say it's just you gotta treat it like any other game, but what's it like actually stepping on the field and go, wow, I'm playing in the World Series?
You know, once you get between the white lines, I think you can treat it like any other game. But the downtime, it's quite nerve-wracking, really. I mean, you know, when you get to the ballpark, instead of having 20 reporters there, you have a couple hundred reporters there, you know. Instead of 25,000 fans, you got 60,000 fans. You got the whole world watching the TV. It's different. It's different. It's not just another game. It really isn't. And it's not just another series. But once you get between the white lines and you know what job you have to do, you kind of, you know, take the crowd out of it if you can, and you just go out and play baseball. But the build up to the game and the waiting, at least for me, it was pretty nerve-wracking.
And what's it like just playing in front of Philadelphia fans? Like, I've been to many Philadelphia sporting events. Like, it's always fun to be a fan, but like as a player, how much of an influence and impact do the fans have on the games, regardless of the sport?
I've been on both sides of that, because I was at all the playoff games last year. So as a player, there's a tremendous effect. There's a lot. It's a lot different playing in front of 5,000 fans when you're 50 games out of first place, as opposed to playing in front of 50,000 fans when you're in first base. Believe me, when you run out there and there's 50,000 fans, I'm telling you what, there's a jolt of adrenaline that goes through you, and it's fun. It's fun playing baseball in front of that many fans. And I got to see the other side of it as a fan last year, and man, you know, that crowd for those home games during the playoffs it was off the charts. It was incredible. And that team built off that. They played well at home. They really had just the one stinker game where they got no hit. But other than that, they played tremendous baseball at home. And a lot of it had to do with the crowd.
Yeah, I was at the game when they clinched the series against Atlanta. And I just remember when they got the last out, just remember the stadium shaking. It was absolutely insanity. Something I'm never gonna forget. But kind of moving throughout more of your career, you made the All-Star game in '95. But what, as like a baseball fan, what was it like kind of going to that dugout, that locker room, and just seeing some like all-time greats? I'm just looking at like some of the roster: Sammy Sosa, Bobby Bonilla, Greg Maddux, Barry Bonds, Mike Piazza, like all these guys. Like, what's it like? You know, you compete against them, but now you're going in the same clubhouse as them.
It's a pretty good feeling. I'm not going to lie. You know, you're going into a clubhouse with superstars, and it was a lot of fun. I had a blast meeting those guys, hanging out with those guys, taking BP with those guys, watching them play a game when they were on my side. It's always nice to have Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and all those big boppers and pitchers on your side. But it was fun. I had a blast. It was in Texas that year, hot as hell. Coming down the steps from the clubhouse, and I didn't even get to the dugout. I was just sweating already. That's how hot it was there. But just a lot of fun. It was an honor for me to get in that game and play. I think I played 2 or 3 innings, and that's something I'll never forget.
That's awesome. Do you have any what was like one memory that, you know, just kind of stuck out to you during like the All-Star break?
You know what? Well, for that All-Star, the thing that stuck out for me was we only had 3 hits that game. They were all solo home runs, and we won the game 3-2. And another thing that sticks out to me is Hideo Nomo, I believe, started that game. And I got a Japanese paper sent to me, and it's me high-fiving Hideo Nomo after the game was over in the newspaper, a Japanese newspaper. So that was pretty cool. So those are a couple things that I definitely remember from that weekend.
That's awesome. Yeah. it's on MLB All-Star games on my bucket list of just as a baseball fan. It's always just so cool to see all the game's biggest stars. It's usually a competitive game, unlike
Yeah,
any.
I liked it more in the past when it was a little more competitive and the
Mhm.
players really cared about it and wanted to win. Pete Rose running over Ray Fosse type of thing where you really wanted to win back in the day. You wanted now with interleague, it does taint it a little bit, because you've played against all these guys before and you've seen them all before. There's really not a National League and American League much anymore, but still fun. The home run derby is exciting. I think that's a great precursor to the game, and it's still a fun game to watch. And you're seeing some pretty darn good athletes out there for a couple days.
Yeah. So kind of just moving to kind of throughout your career. So you did go to the Cubs after you left the Phillies, and we're a Philly show, so we're not going to talk much about the Cubs. But there is one game during your Cubs tenure I want to talk about, and you obviously had a front row seat to it. It's Kerry Wood's 20 strikeout game. I mean, I think only one other pitcher has done that since, and that's Max Scherzer a couple years ago. I mean, when did you realize during that game that that 20 strikeouts was a possibility?
Probably a couple innings into the game. I mean, that was the most electric stuff I ever saw a pitcher have in a game that I was involved in.
Mm-hmm.
His fastball was, with today's radar guns, was definitely upper 90s, if not near 100. But that breaking ball that day was just unhittable. I mean, it was breaking 3-4 feet. I mean, they had no chance. And he went up and down a lineup. It was an Astros lineup. It was pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
And he made them all look pretty silly. Probably should have had a no-hitter that day. There was a ground ball that kind of got under Kevin Ory's glove that they called a base hit. But, that day, that team had no – I don't care what team was hitting that day or who we were playing. His stuff was just off the charts, silly. It's like throwing a wiffle ball up there, really. It was amazing stuff.
What was his kind of reaction like after the game? Like, did it hit him that he just just struck out 20 batters in a game, or was he just nonchalant about it?
I think he was pretty gaga. He was young. That was his rookie year. I just, he was trying to establish himself as a starting pitcher still. And that helped, that's for sure. But he was just kind of numb to it all. The guys behind him, me, Gracie, Sosa, Blauser, that whole crew, we knew how special that day was. And I think Clemens had done it earlier, in his career. I don't know what year it was, but yeah, you're right. Not too many people get an opportunity to strike out, I guess, almost 3/4 of the batters that you face.
Was that a moment in your career where you're like really happy that you weren't having to face him?
Oh, no question. There's a few pitchers that I'm glad I faced Randy Johnson about a handful of times. I'm glad I didn't face him much more than that. But you don't. That's just like I said. It's like hitting a wiffle ball up there. And I'm glad I was behind him and not having to face him. That's for sure.
Was there a pitcher, past or present, that you really wish you could have faced either once in your career or just a few more times than what you did?
I would have liked to face Nolan Ryan once, just to see, not to, to see. I watched there's a documentary out on him that I watched, and for him to throw up until his upper 40s and still throw in the 90s is just incredible to me. But I would have loved to face him in his prime, just to see that ball go by me and see that breaking ball. So yeah, I would have loved, and I would have kind of liked to face. No, I would have just stood there because I'd be scared to death in the box. But Bob Gibson would have been one I would have loved to get in the box and just see what his ball does and walk back to the dugout and say, "Wow, that was pretty impressive."
Any present day pitchers?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to face Verlander. He's pretty filthy. I'd like to face. I'd like to face Nola, be honest with you, because he's got so many different pitches. He's got that two-seamer that cuts back. He's got the unbelievable curveball. He's got the change-outs, four-seamer. I'd like to see what his ball does up there. There's some closers that throwing over 100 miles an hour. I wouldn't want to face Alvarado right now, that's for sure. he's nobody's hitting him right now. But yeah, there's some guys up there that throw hard, but in the bottom line is you still have to throw the ball over the plate. Mm-hmm. And if you can be disciplined up there and get a good pitch to hit, you still got a chance to have some success.
Absolutely. Is there like a pitcher that you loved to face that you always felt like you, even though he was like a higher tier pitcher, that you always felt like you had a leg up on him?
It's funny, but there's 3 pitchers that I really just owned. One was Greg Maddux, 2 was Andy Bennis, and the 3rd one was Doc Gooden, believe it or not. And I really can't explain. I was a fastball hitter, and I loved pitchers that threw hard. I couldn't hit the guys that threw 86 with a slow curveball and, dinked and dunked. But if you had a fastball, good fastball, I could hit you. And those were the type of pitchers I hit really well. And I can't explain Greg Maddux to you other than the fact that I kind of took half the plate. You can't cover the whole plate on him. And I kind of guessed very well with him. He threw me a boatload of changeups, but I kind of split the plate on him and took one half of the plate and hoped he threw it in that part of the plate. And for the most part, I was pretty successful. I hit almost 340 off him career, and I faced him about 120 times. So, yeah, it was pretty weird how I had success off of him.
Awesome. So, kind of in your post-playing days, you were the manager for a couple of the Phillies single A teams. Just 3 of your times in the minors, because right now I'm covering in the Iron Pigs, so I get to see a lot of these young guys. But was there a player when you were now down managing in single A that really stood out to you, that you knew from the kind of start that they were going to make it up to the big leagues and possibly be a big time player?
Yeah, I thought Maikel Franco had a really good chance to be a star. He had all the hitting tools. He had power. He could hit the ball the other way. He didn't have any speed, but he had quick bat. He had good hands. And I just thought he would do better in the big leagues. He had, he was okay. I thought he would have a more significant role in the big leagues because there were a couple of halves in the minor leagues. He always struggled in the first half, but the second half, especially in Spartanburg and Reading, where I coached, he was the best player in the league by far in the second half. And I just really thought that he had a chance to be a really, really good baseball player. Just never got to that point.
Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously now you're in an ambassador role for the Phillies. So you were around the team a lot kind of last year. Last year was a big roller coaster of a season. Obviously the slow start, managerial change to Rob Thompson. Bryce goes down, Segura goes down, Castellanos go down. Wheeler goes down, and then they go on this magical playoff run. Just kind of what was that roller coaster of a season like from your perspective, both as like a fan and as a former player and someone who's around the team?
Yeah, well, at 14 and 22, which they were, I think, in mid-May or so, and Harper gets hurt, you're thinking, well, let's start preparing for next year. And Rob Thompson takes over and just, he set roles for them, which I don't think Joe did very well. He set roles for them. The bullpen knew what their role was. The lineup was consistent from 1 through 9 for the most part, where Joe had them, shifting every game. And I think that had a huge impact on those guys. When a baseball player knows his role, he knows when he's going to play, he knows where he's going to bat in the order, he knows when he's going to pitch, things like that. It has a huge effect on a ball player, and they just took off. They played excellent baseball. They got great pitching. The bullpen got better. And obviously they were hitting the ball out of the ballpark like crazy. But, you know how the playoffs are. It's not always the best team. It's a team that's the hottest going in. And we were pretty good going in. The game that turned things around for me was that St. Louis game. I think it was the first game where we're down 2-0 in the ninth. We score 3 or 4 runs and win the ball game. And from that point on, we played tremendous baseball. Yeah.
So you think there's a point in the season? Obviously the playoffs, I think that St. Louis, like you said, that St. Louis game's Alec Bohm getting hit by the pitch, and instead of, holding his shoulders, just starts clapping towards the bench.
Right.
Was there a point in the regular season where you thought that you saw this team could possibly win the pennant?
I didn't know if they had enough pitching. I didn't know if they were deep enough, but I knew the offense was going to score a lot of runs. I mean, that offense was pretty solid, especially where the young kids were playing. Bohm was playing well. Stott was playing well. They were getting, obviously, Harper was off the charts, and Schwarber was hitting bombs, and Segura was playing well, and JT had a great year. But I just didn't know if they had enough starting pitching to get through. And, they did. They did. They pitched very well. The bullpen was solid. They just playing at home. I'm telling you, playing at home in front of that crowd, I don't think teams were comfortable playing here. I know the Padres and Braves were not comfortable here. They looked like two totally different teams from when they played in the regular season. And like I said, that had a huge effect on both the home team and the visiting team. And, you get on a roll like that, you get that confidence going. It's tough for you to lose.
Yeah, and kind of moving into the World Series a little bit. So I was reading an article on you, and it was a photo you posted on your Instagram. I think it was Game 3 of the World Series, but it's a box with all former Phillies in it. I mentioned earlier the strong alumni relations, but seeing like a lot of those guys from like the '08 team, some of your old teammates, all in the same box, watching the Phillies in the World Series, what was it like? How special of a moment was that?
It was special. I mean, that should show fans in the city how special we think Philadelphia is. When all those guys come back to watch games, there were guys from '80 in there. There were guys from '83. There were the '93 guys in there, and there were a bunch of '08 guys in there. And that should just show the city how much we care about the city. We love this organization, and this organization has always been good to the alumni. They've taken care of them. And when they, anytime they come into town, they put them in a suite, they put them up at a hotel, they bring them to the ball games. It's a special place to play. And I think there were about maybe 15 of us in that box. And believe me, it was a lot of fun that night.
I think just as a baseball fan or just a fan of the Phillies, like any Philly fan would just like to just be a fly on the wall and just obviously hear some of the conversations, just talking baseball about all those, great years in Philly. But was there a guy, I'd say from the 2007 to 2011, that was kind of my generation's, big, great Phillies run. Was there a guy from that, tenure that really stood out to you as just represented the team in the city of Philadelphia the best?
I mean, I think Utley does. I mean, and Halladay did. Just the way they went about their business. They're very hard workers. They played the game the right way. Halladay would get to the ballpark at 4 a.m. for workouts, when he didn't pitch. And Utley was just, a grinder. Obviously super talented offensive player. But I think those two guys kind of epitomizes what this city is about and how you go about your business and your work ethic. And I think the fans show their appreciation for those guys. Every time they come into town, they get standing ovations. That's pretty cool.
Mm. So obviously you're the second baseman for the Phillies. Phillies looks like their new second baseman for the foreseeable future, and Bryson Stott, but he's really much elevated his game from last year's. Actually, this is the 1-year anniversary of the Phillies sending him down to AAA in favor of bringing Roman Quinn back up to the majors. But what have you seen from Stott from year 1 to year 2 that maybe the fans don't necessarily see has been the reason for his success?
I think the big thing is his calmness. Doesn't seem like anything shakes him. He just plays the game the right way. He grinds out at bats. He has 8, 9, 10 pitch at bats almost every game. He's done a tremendous job spreading out with 2 strikes and grinding, fouling balls off, putting the ball in play. He's done a great job against left-handed pitching. I would assume when they first brought him up, they thought, well, we'll play him against righties and someone else against lefties. And he's impressed, against lefties too. So he's playing a nice second base. His situation is kind of similar to mine. I was a shortstop all up until AAA when they moved me to second base. And it's a bit of an adjustment. That double play is not easy. when you're used to turning double plays from shortstop as opposed to second base where your back's to the runner. So he's done a nice job there. And I'm looking for him just to continue to get better and better. And him and Bohm and Marsh is taking off too, just to be a good cornerstone for this team for a while here in the future.
Yeah, those are the three that have definitely elevated their games a lot. Bohm played really, really well, and Marsh, and throughout the playoffs last year, Stott had some big hits in a couple of games, but just those three. But what do you think the credit is to them and their success? Like, do you see them continuing to play hot throughout the season, or is this just kind of a little bit of a hot stretch for them right now?
Well, I think Kevin Long's done a great job with all of them. Marsh has made some big adjustments in his swing. I think Bohm, we knew was going to be a good hitter. Now he's starting to pull the ball a little more, hit for a little more power. So I think Kevin Long has done a tremendous job with a lot of these guys. Castellanos is a different hitter this year. You can see it. His balance is so much better. He's staying back on the balls. He's not lunging. So I think Kevin Long has a big impact on these guys. So I would think Bohm and Marsh and Stott will continue to do what they're doing for most of the year. It would surprise me if they don't.
Yeah, it's definitely been a fun season so far, but they started off slow, 1-5. Phillies Twitter was going absolutely insane. Made some stupid comments that they want Rob Thompson fired, which I thought was absolutely insanity. But what's kind of the mood around the clubhouse right now? They're starting to get it more together. They're one game below 500 right now, but what's kind of the mood around the clubhouse right now?
I haven't been in the clubhouse yet. I always go in a couple times here and there, but I haven't been in yet. But they're fine. There's no panic in there by any means. I mean, they're going to be around 500 right now. I don't know if they're losing today, but Harper's going to be back sooner than later. Suarez is out on rehab, which will allow, them to put the lefty back in the bullpen, which is going to make that bullpen, which is already strong, even deeper. And then you throw Harper in the middle of that lineup. My God, they're going to be fine. The starters are starting to pitch deeper in the ball games. Nola's starting to look like Nola. Wheeler's starting to look like Wheeler. The back end of the rotation has actually been pretty good. So, they're going to be fine. They're going to win a lot of ball games. It's a tough division. Atlanta's really good. The Mets, if they can stay healthy, are going to be really good. But, you don't have to win the division anymore. You got some wild cards you can get in, and we've seen what the wild card team can do last year. So they just need to, stay out of those long losing streaks and put together a couple good winning streaks, and they're going to be fine.
Yeah, I always say the Braves are going to be a tough team, and the Mets are going to Met at the end of the day, is what I always say. But just kind of going to some of the coaching staff, what is Rob Thompson? You mentioned they gave everybody roles, but the fans and the players all raved about him. I remember Segura, after they won the pennant, said he was the best manager he's ever had. What has he just brought to the table, other than just baseball, analytics and stuff?
Yeah, just consistency. Like I said, he's consistent with his lineup for the most part. He's consistent with how he uses the bullpen. A lot of people thought he shouldn't have taken Wheeler out last year, but that was our winning formula. The starter goes 6 or 7, then we bring in Alvarez and Severino, and we close the game out. So that was our path to win. It didn't work out that game, but I think that's the biggest thing, and he's a good communicator. He communicates with his players, and that's all a player wants, is to know his role, communicate with your manager, and go out and play the game the right way. And I think these guys do that.
So another big player I want to kind of talk about, the big addition this offseason, Trey Turner. What's it like having him around the team? What's he added to the lineup and in the infield that we didn't have last year?
Yeah, huge. It's huge. It's a huge signing. It was a great signing. I was hoping they would get him. They got him. He brings stability to the shortstop position. A guy that's going to swing the bat. He's not a guy that's going to walk a lot. He likes to swing the bat in that leadoff role, but He's got tremendous speed. He's probably going to get 40 infield base hits this year. He's going to steal 30 to 40 bases. He's going to score a ton of runs. He's going to, the power numbers in the WBC. He's not going to hit home runs like that. That's not Trey Turner. He got on a roll there, but he can pop the ball to the ballpark. He'll hit, 15 or so or whatever, maybe 20 in this ballpark. But just a guy that at the top of the lineup, he's going to be on base. He's going to create havoc. He can score from first on almost any ball that gets to the outfield, and it's just a tremendous signing. And like I said, once you get Harper in that third spot, there's no easy out in that lineup. There really isn't. You've got to battle, 1 through 9, and that's going to be tough on opposing pitchers.
Yeah, I think just once Harper gets back, I think this team is just going to absolutely take it to the next level. I hope so. That's obviously the hope with everybody.
Right.
But kind of just looking at the Phillies this year, realistically right now, is this a team that can compete again for a pennant in your eyes, or possibly compete for more? Or did this team kind of peak a little bit too early last year with its playoff run?
Oh, no, I think they can compete for a pennant for sure. They've got a good rotation. Once Suarez comes back, it's pretty deep, actually. It'll be deeper. Bullpen's off the charts. I mean, the bullpen, there can't be too many bullpens better than ours out there. And there can't be, honestly, once Harper gets back, it's a shame Reese went down. But once Harper gets back and Hall gets back, there can't be too many lineups that are going to be better than ours out there either. So it's a good combination. We just got to keep these starters healthy. And like I said, we'll be fine. We'll be around that, 90 win total probably. And I would imagine that's going to be good enough to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the architect for all this, I remember it's crazy to say that we have the best bullpen in baseball when 3 or 4 years ago they had a historically high ERA for a bullpen. A lot of credit has to do to Dave Dombrowski and just his aggressive approach. But what has Dombrowski's aggressive approach and Middleton's willingness to kind of spend money, how big of a key has that been to the Phillies roster that we have now?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. Dave Dombrowski has done a tremendous job of analyzing talent. I mean, bringing Alvarado in here has really paid dividends. And, what's the pitcher from the lefty that's starting?
Stram.
I mean, wow. What a great arm he is. And bringing Soto over. I mean, these guys just throw the heck out of the baseball. And even, signing guys like Bilotti, to eat up some middle innings. He's done a tremendous job. And Brogdon, those guys are just as important too. And, getting Wheeler over here and those types of things. And Tajon Walker, I mean, Dave obviously and Mr. Middleton aren't afraid to spend money. And it's paid dividends for sure. I mean, think about how many superstars we have on this team now, and Harper and Turner and Schwarber and Castellanos and, Bohm and Stott are on their way, and JT, my good, he goes down the list, and he just got tremendous athlete after tremendous athlete. So, they've been, Dave Dombrowski had his work cut out for us with what the roster was when he got here. And, we kind of were set back about 3 years from the previous regime. So, they've done a tremendous job, and they're going to keep pushing. If we need a starter, or we need another bat, or we need something, a bench player, whatever it may be, they're going to go out, they're going to get it. And they want to bring a title to this great city of, that supports its baseball. So, they'll do whatever it takes to get a championship banner up there again.
Yeah, I think that's one thing people always seem to forget about Dombrowski is everywhere he's gone, he's won.
Yeah.
I think the last 4 teams he's been at, he took to the World Series. They don't necessarily win anybody. Took Detroit to a World Series, took Boston, and won one with the Marlins.
Yeah.
So, we have a winner, and I love what he's doing right now. But I just want to close with just one last kind of thing, but just how much the game is baseball has changed. There's obviously a lot more rule changes, but kind of one change. You mentioned earlier you don't see any more American League and National League, and this is the first season where you play everybody regardless of AL, NL. What are your thoughts to that as someone that's been around the game for so long?
Well, I like that part of it. I like the fact that everybody plays everybody, kind of evens the field a little bit. Because, if you're in a tough division the way it was, and you're playing each team, I think it was 18 times, and then you're in a weak division, like the National League Central was so bad last year, and then you're playing the Pirates and the Reds and Cubs, who were bad last year. That's a huge that's a huge difference when you're trying to either win the division or make a wild card. So the fact that everybody's, they've lowered the number of games in your division, I believe, to 12 or 13, and you get to play every team now. Now we're all kind of playing on an even field a little bit more. So I like what they've done with that. Some of the rules changes I don't understand, but I will say this. Batting averages are up because they got rid of the shift. Stolen bases attempts and stolen bases are way up. Obviously, the speed of the game, they're dropped the half hour off the game. So, as much as analytics took away from the game, where it said we're not going to steal bases, we're not going to do the little things, we're going to try and hit the 3-run home run. Now baseball is trying to bring back some of those things by largening the bases and having the pickoff rules and speeding up the game. So, I didn't think we needed to change the game originally, but we do need to create more exciting situations. I mean, you don't bunt a lot anymore. Well, you didn't steal bases. You didn't hit and run. You couldn't take the second baseman out. You can't run into the catcher. There's all these things that they kind of took away from the game, and I think they realized that maybe it was getting a little boring. And now they're trying to bring some things back, the stolen base, things like that. So it's working. So I guess they know what they're doing.
If you were playing in today's game, would you be okay with the big one is the pitch clock that everyone gets angry about? It's affected both pitchers and hitters. But if you played in today's game, would you be a fan of, having to rush to get into the batter's box? Like I always say, if I just almost took a 100-mile-per-hour fastball to the face, but I got to turn around in 5 seconds and get back in the batter's box, I might just take the strike.
Yeah. I'm a believer in the great thing about baseball was there was no clock. You had to get 27 outs to win the ball game. If it took 2 hours, great. If it took 4 hours, well, it took 4 hours. That's the way the game was to be played. But, I don't like it. A lot of people like it. A lot of people love the fact that the games aren't as long. It doesn't matter to me if a game's 2.5 hours or 3.5 hours. It really doesn't. But I wasn't a guy the clock probably wouldn't have affected me much. I didn't really step out of the box. I took a pitch. I stepped out for maybe 2 seconds, stepped right back in. So I don't think the clock would have bothered me as a hitter. But I do know a lot of pitchers that I played behind would not be able to play on 20 seconds. I guarantee you.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's part of me, like, I like it. I always loved about baseball is I was never watching a clock. It's not like going to the Sixers or the Eagles and like every 30 seconds I'm up looking at the clock.
Right.
There's always just get to sit back, watch baseball,
my
drink a beer.
My only concern is in the early parts of the game, it's fine. But if we're in a situation at the end of the game where the bases are loaded and there's 2 outs, and I don't want a game to end on a called third strike because the batter's not in the box or a walk because the pitcher didn't throw the ball. I just don't want those things to happen in a big game, late in the year when something's meaningful. I hope it doesn't happen. Hopefully it won't. But there have been some situations already where, close games, guys been called out on strikes or where the batter wasn't in the box, and it is having an effect on some pitchers. I know that.
Yeah, I was at the Iron Pigs covering one of their games, and it was bases loaded, and the Iron Pigs had bases loaded, and at bat got called, ended on a pitch clock violation because he wasn't in the batter's box ready, and it was bases loaded. They only lost by 1. It's keep asking yourself, what if he made contact on that next pitch? So, but hey, it's a new game era of baseball, but
it is what it is.
Far,
follow the rules and do the best you can.
I love it until it affects the Phillies and we lose a game on it. Until then, I think it's
Right.
the greatest rule ever.
Right.
But all it needs to take is that one instance, and Philly fans will absolutely tear the MLB a new one.
Yes, they will.
Awesome. Well, Mickey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Go Phillies.
Really awesome. Go Phillies. Absolutely. We'll be back next week for another episode of Phrankly Phils here on the AAT Sports Network. See you all next week.